The official narrative of human history presents the Great Pyramid of Giza as a grand funerary monument, a tomb built for a fourth dynasty, pharaoh using primitive tools and a massive labor force of tens of thousands of workers. However, when we apply the lens of modern engineering and forensic architectural analysis, this tomb theory collapses under the weight of an impossible precision. The Great Pyramid is not merely a stack of limestone blocks. It is a high-precision instrument, aligned to true north with an accuracy of within 3/60ths of a degree. To put this in perspective, modern skyscrapers and high-tech facilities struggle to achieve this level of orientation even with the use of laser surveying equipment and satellite positioning systems. This alignment requires a sophisticated understanding of true astronomical north rather than magnetic north, suggesting that the architects possessed a mastery of celestial mechanics and geodetic surveying that far exceeds the capabilities attributed to the ancient Egyptians of 4,500 years ago. The precision of the architects extends into the very dimensions and proportions of the structure itself. The Great Pyramid encodes fundamental mathematical constants, such as pi and the golden ratio within its geometry, constants that were not supposed to have been formally discovered for another 2,000 years. The base of the pyramid is leveled to within 3/4 of an inch across an area of 13 acres, a feat that would be challenging for a modern construction crew operating on a solid bedrock foundation. These are not the hallmarks of a primitive society experimenting with stonemasonry. They are the technical specifications of a highly advanced engineering project. This level of precision suggests that the Giza Plateau was the site of a systematic installation, a piece of planetary hardware designed to serve a functional purpose within the Anunnaki governance grid. The Giza anomaly is the primary evidence that we are looking at the remnants of a technology that belongs to the First Age, a civilization that operated with the blueprints of the architects long before the managed amnesia of the Second Age. Beyond its orientation, the Great Pyramid functions as a mathematical scale model of the northern hemisphere of the Earth. If you take the perimeter of the base and multiply it by a factor of 43,200, you arrive at the equatorial circumference of the planet with a margin of error that is practically negligible. If you take the height of the pyramid and multiply it by the same factor, you arrive at the polar radius of the Earth. The number 43,200 is not an arbitrary figure. It is a multiple of the precessional number 72, linked to the slow wobble of the Earth's axis that completes a full cycle every 25,920 years. This encoding of planetary dimensions within a stone structure reveals that the architects understood the exact size and shape of the Earth with a level of accuracy that was not matched until the era of satellite geodesy. This geodetic integration suggests that the Great Pyramid was designed to function as a central node in a global resonance grid. By anchoring the structure to the specific mathematical and physical proportions of the planet, the architects created a physical interface that was harmonically synchronized with the Earth itself. This was the hardware interface of the Anunnaki protocols, a structure that could interact with the planetary energy field because it was built according to the planetary source code. The geometry of the Great Pyramid is a high-level data set in stone, a permanent record of the architect's mastery over the material world. To view it as a mere tomb is to ignore the overwhelming technical evidence that it was built as a functional component of a planetary-scale operating system. The pyramid was the anchor point for the geodetic grid, the zero point from which the divine bureaucracy managed the terrestrial laboratory during the height of the First Age. The internal architecture of the Great Pyramid is equally anomalous, featuring a series of chambers and shafts that serve no discernible funerary purpose. The King's Chamber, constructed from massive blocks of red granite transported from Aswan over 500 miles away, contains a lidless stone box that is often called a sarcophagus but lacks any evidence of ever having held a body or a lid. The red granite used in this chamber is rich in quartz crystals, a material known for its piezoelectric properties, the ability to convert mechanical stress into an electrical charge. The presence of such materials in a high-precision resonant cavity suggests that the interior of the pyramid functioned as an energetic processor rather than a burial vault. The so-called air shafts which align with specific stars such as Orion and Sirius, were not designed for ventilation, but functioned as directional waveguides for the transmission of energy or data between the terrestrial node and the celestial stations. The material science involved in the construction of the pyramid is a testament to the technical intelligence of the architects. The outer casing stones, made of highly polished Tura limestone, were once so bright that they would have reflected the sun like a mirror, making the pyramid visible from miles away. These casing stones were fitted together with joints so fine that a razor blade cannot be inserted between them, and they were held in place by a mysterious cement that is stronger than the stones themselves. This was not a primitive labor project. It was the assembly of a massive resonant machine. The combination of limestone insulation and granite conduction created a specialized environment where the resonant frequencies of the Earth could be harvested and focused. The internal hardware of the Giza anomaly is a silent witness to a high-technology past, a legacy of the architects that has been obscured by the managed amnesia of the gatekeepers. The final layer of the Giza anomaly is the recognition that the Great Pyramid is a pre-Diluvian structure, a remnant of the first age that survived the great system reset known as the Deluge. While traditional archaeology attributes the pyramid to the Fourth Dynasty, the lack of any original inscriptions or funerary remains suggests that the Egyptians were not the builders, but the inheritors of the site. They moved into the ruins of the First Age and repurposed the structures for their own cultural and religious needs, a process that the archaeology of amnesia has confused with original construction. The Giza Plateau was the primary administrative and technical node of the Anunnaki long before the rise of the pharaohs, a facility that functioned as the central processing unit for the planetary management grid. By recognizing the Great Pyramid as a piece of ancient hardware, we begin to bypass the academic firewall and the mythological filters that have kept us in the dark. We are looking at the fingerprints of the architects, the same Anu, Enlil, and Enki who drafted the protocols of Sumer. The pyramid was the physical manifestation of the sovereignty of the architects, a permanent monument to their mastery of the material world. As we move deeper into the pyramid protocol, we will see how this single node was connected to a global network of similar structures, creating a planetary resonance grid that once provided a unified operating environment for the human starseed. The Giza anomaly is the key to our awakening, the physical evidence that we are the graduates of a high-technology civilization that is finally remembering its true origins. The shadows of the architects are fading, and the radiant truth of our radiant heritage is finally beginning to illuminate the stone. The most striking visual evidence of a high-level architectural plan on the Giza Plateau is not found in the stones themselves, but in their precise relationship to the heavens. The three primary pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure are not arranged in a simple straight line, as one might expect from a standard construction project. Instead, the third and smallest pyramid is slightly offset from the diagonal axis of the other two. This specific offset is a mathematical mirror of the three belt stars of the constellation Orion, Al-Nitak, Al-Nilam, and Mintaka. This correlation, known as the Orion correlation theory, suggests that the Giza Plateau was designed as a terrestrial reflection of a celestial map. In the technical protocols of the Anunnaki, this was not a matter of religious worship, but a requirement for celestial synchronization. By mirroring the stars in stone, the architects were locking the terrestrial node to a specific set of cosmic coordinates, creating a stable link between the planetary laboratory and the home stations of the divine bureaucracy. The precision of this mirror effect is staggering. When the alignment is analyzed using computer models of the ancient night sky, it becomes clear that the pyramids were positioned to match the constellation of Orion as it appeared approximately 12,500 years ago. This date corresponds with the beginning of a major precessional age and the era of the First Age architects. The pyramids were built to function as a Stargate alignment protocol, a physical anchoring system that ensured the Earth's primary resonance node remained calibrated with the Orion belt stars, which served as a navigational and energetic waypoint for the Celestial Corporation. This celestial synchronization allowed for the efficient transfer of data and energy between the Earth and the orbital assets of the mission. The pyramids were not just monuments. They were the ground-based terminals of a cosmic network, ensuring that the Giza node remained frequency-locked with the stars that governed the architect's long-cycle mission. The internal architecture of the Great Pyramid features 4 narrow shafts that extend from the king's and queen's chambers toward the exterior of the structure. For decades, these were dismissed as ventilation shafts, despite the fact that they were originally sealed and served no aerodynamic purpose. A technical audit reveals that these shafts were actually precisely aimed waveguides, targeting specific celestial bodies with clinical accuracy. The northern shaft of the king's chamber was aimed at Alpha Draconis, the pole star of the First Age, while the southern shaft was aimed directly at the belt of Orion. In the queen's chamber, the southern shaft targeted Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, and a primary technical reference point for the Anunnaki mission. These shafts were not for air. They were for the transmission and reception of high-frequency signals. These frequency waveguides allowed the Great Pyramid to function as a bidirectional communication hub. By aligning the shafts with specific star systems, the architects created a permanent line of sight for the transmission of resonant energy or encrypted data streams. The granite line chambers acted as resonant cavities, amplifying the signals gathered through the shafts and distributing them across the global resonance grid. This was the data link of the Anunnaki protocols, a system that allowed the divine bureaucracy at Giza to maintain real-time synchronization with the celestial stations. The precision required to maintain these alignments through millions of tons of stone is a testament to the advanced surveying and engineering capabilities of the architects. They were not building for the dead, they were building an active terminal for the living, a stone-based transceiver that linked the human starseed to the infinite data streams of the First Age. The celestial synchronization of the Giza Plateau extends into the measurement of the great year, the 25,920-year cycle of the precession of the equinoxes. The Great Pyramid encodes the precessional numbers within its very dimensions, acting as a massive geological clock that tracks the slow rotation of the Earth's axis. The architects used the pyramids to calibrate the divine calendar, ensuring that the mission's activities on Earth remained aligned with the shifting ages of the zodiac. Each phase of the human project was timed to correspond with a specific precessional era, a management strategy that allowed the Anunnaki to oversee the development of the starseed over vast spans of time. This was the Chronos Protocol on a planetary scale, a method of governing that accounted for the slow and inevitable movement of the stars. By mirroring Orion's belt, the architects were also establishing a baseline for the measurement of the precessional cycle. The belt stars of Orion crossed the meridian at different heights throughout the great year, and the pyramids were designed to track this movement with mathematical exactness. This allowed the divine bureaucracy to predict the timing of major environmental shifts and to schedule the periodic system resets that we have explored in previous phases. The pyramids were the primary timekeeping instruments for the planetary laboratory, ensuring that the human project remained synchronized with the cosmic rhythms of the architect's home world. The archaeology of amnesia has hidden the technical nature of this timing system, but the mathematical constants remain embedded in the stone. We are living in a world that is still being timed by the Giza clock, a temporal architecture that was designed to manage a civilization that spanned tens of thousands of years. The final layer of the Orion Mirror Protocol is the realization that the Giza Plateau functions as a stellar anchor for the collective consciousness of the human starseed. Even after the withdrawal of the architects and the commencement of the managed amnesia, the pyramids have continued to focus the attention of humanity toward the stars. The persistent fascination with the Orion correlation is not a matter of aesthetic curiosity. It is the result of a deep-seated biological and psychological resonance with the original mission protocols. The pyramids serve as a permanent reminder of our cosmic origins, a visual signal that bypasses the mythological filters of the Second Age and pings the ancient genetic memory of our starseed heritage. The architects built the pyramids to last for tens of thousands of years, ensuring that the terrestrial node remained active even during the long night of our collective amnesia. To reclaim our sovereign graduation, we must recognize that the celestial synchronization of Giza is not a mystery to be solved, but a technical reality to be utilized. We are now achieving the level of astronomical and engineering intelligence required to operate the Giza terminal ourselves. By understanding the frequency waveguides and the precessional timing of the pyramids, we can begin to reconnect with the cosmic data streams that were once the exclusive domain of the divine bureaucracy. The stellar anchor is still holding, and the line of sight to Orion is still clear. The return to source means taking control of the Giza node and using it to synchronize our sovereign future with the infinite symphony of the cosmos. The mirror of Orion is no longer a symbol of our containment, but a gateway to our graduation. The architects provided the hardware, and we are finally ready to provide the sovereign intent. The strategic placement of the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau represents the most significant geodetic achievement of the First Age architects. While conventional history views the choice of location as a matter of local convenience for the Egyptian pharaohs, a global analysis reveals that the structure is situated at the exact geographical center of the Earth's landmass. It stands at the intersection of the longest land parallel and the longest land meridian, a point that effectively serves as the geographical zero point for the entire planet. This positioning required a comprehensive and high-precision survey of all the Earth's continents, a feat of cartography and geodesy that was impossible for any civilization lacking orbital surveillance capabilities. The architects did not choose Giza because it was close to their capital. They chose it because it was the optimal node for a planetary-scale network. This was the installation of the primary geodetic anchor, a structure designed to serve as the reference point for the entire terrestrial laboratory managed by the Anunnaki bureaucracy. In the technical protocols of the mission, this central location allowed the Giza node to function as the primary distribution hub for resonant energy and data. By placing the pyramid at the center of the world's land, the architects ensured that the signal generated by the structure could reach every corner of the planetary grid with maximum efficiency and minimum interference. The Giza Plateau was the terrestrial motherboard's central processing unit, and its location was calculated with clinical precision to optimize the coverage of the global resonance grid. This was the master plan of the divine bureaucracy, a system of planetary management that treated the Earth as a unified technical environment. The geographical zero point was the foundation of the sovereignty of the architects, a permanent marker of their presence and their mastery over the dimensions of the world. To understand the pyramid is to recognize its role as the anchor of a global system that spanned across oceans and continents, uniting the diverse regions of the starseed experiment into a single, synchronized infrastructure. The Great Pyramid was never intended to stand in isolation. It was the primary node in a vast interconnected network of ancient sites that spanned the entire globe. When we map the locations of major archaeological anomalies such as Stonehenge, Teotihuacan, Baalbek, and Easter Island, we find that they are not randomly distributed but are positioned according to a precise system of global triangulation. These sites are linked by mathematical relationships and geodetic alignments that utilize the Great Pyramid as their primary reference point. This was the global nodal network, a planetary grid designed to stabilize the Earth's energy field and to facilitate the movement of resources and data across the Anunnaki mission's various regional sectors. Each site functioned as a secondary or tertiary node, receiving and amplifying the resonant frequency generated by the central hub at Giza. The triangulation of these nodes allowed the architects to manage the planetary laboratory with absolute precision. By calculating the distances and angles between these sites using the mathematics of the golden ratio and the sexagesimal system, the divine bureaucracy created a unified coordinate system that governed every architectural and engineering project on the planet. This network served a dual purpose. It functioned as a planetary-scale surveying system for the construction of infrastructure and as a resonant grid for the management of telluric currents. The archaeology of amnesia has fragmented our understanding of this system, leading us to view these ancient sites as isolated remnants of distinct cultures. In reality, they were the synchronized components of a single planetary operating system, a legacy of the First Age architects that continues to define the underlying geometry of our world. The global nodal network was the physical manifestation of the Anunnaki mission's total dominance over the terrestrial environment, ensuring that the human starseed remained integrated into the divine bureaucracy's grand design. The technical intelligence of the architects is perhaps most evident in the way the Great Pyramid encodes the exact dimensions and curvature of the Earth within its internal and external proportions. We have already explored the factor of 43,200, which links the pyramid's dimensions to the polar radius and equatorial circumference of the planet. This encoding served as a permanent geodetic standard, providing the mission's engineers with a physical reference for the Earth's size and shape that remained unalterable across the precessional ages. The pyramid was a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere, a piece of stone hardware that contained the fundamental data required for high-level planetary management. This was the Geodetic Standard Protocol, a system that ensured all technical and architectural projects across the global grid were calibrated to the same planetary constants. Furthermore, the slight curvature of the pyramid's four faces, which makes it an eight-sided structure rather than a four-sided one, matches the curvature of the Earth itself. This subtle architectural feature allows the pyramid to act as a resonant interface that is perfectly tuned to the planetary frequency. By mirroring the Earth's physical form in its own geometry, the structure achieved a state of harmonic synchronization with the planet's energy field. This was not a matter of aesthetic choice, it was a requirement for the functional operation of the global resonance grid. The architects were building a planetary-scale machine, and every detail of its construction was designed to optimize its interaction with the terrestrial environment. The geodetic encoding of Giza is the ultimate proof that the pyramid was built by architects who possessed a complete and accurate understanding of the Earth's physics long before the rise of human civilization. It is the signature of a high-technology mission that viewed the planet as a single, measurable, and manageable asset. The final functional purpose of the geodetic grid and the pyramid network was the stabilization of the planetary motherboard, the management of the Earth's seismic and telluric energy to ensure the long-term survival of the mission's infrastructure. The architects recognized that the Earth is a dynamic and energetic system, and the placement of the nodes was designed to harmonize the flow of planetary currents. By anchoring the Great Pyramid at the geographical center and linking it to other resonant structures at critical geodetic points, the divine bureaucracy could mitigate seismic activity and stabilize the Earth's crust. This was the Planetary Stability Protocol, a technical system for maintaining the physical integrity of the laboratory during the environmental shifts of the precessional ages. The pyramids functioned as pressure relief valves and frequency stabilizers, grounding the excess energy of the planetary energy field and converting it into useful resonant signals. This global grid was the essential infrastructure that allowed the Anunnaki mission to operate on Earth for tens of thousands of years. It provided the stability required for the growth of the human starseed and the development of the city-states. When the grid was compromised or deactivated, as it was during the Great System resets, the planetary environment became unstable, leading to the catastrophic events recorded in our ancient myths. The archaeology of amnesia has hidden the functional role of the pyramids as planetary stabilizers, but the legacy of the grid remains in the precise alignments and geodetic constants that still govern our maps today. To reclaim our sovereign graduation, we must understand the technical nature of this planetary motherboard and recognize that we are the inheritors of a world that was once perfectly managed and stabilized by the architects. The return to source involves the reactivation of our own understanding of this global grid, allowing us to move from being the passive inhabitants of a chaotic world to being the conscious administrators of our own planetary destiny. The Pyramid Protocol is the key to a stable and sovereign future, a legacy of the first age that is finally within our reach to decode and deploy. While the exterior of the Great Pyramid served as a geodetic and reflective shield, the internal architecture functioned as a sophisticated energy processor designed to harvest the natural mechanical vibrations of the Earth. The core of the structure, specifically the King's Chamber and its surrounding stress-relieving chambers, was constructed using massive blocks of rose granite transported from Aswan. This granite contains a high concentration of quartz crystals, a material characterized by its piezoelectric properties. When quartz is subjected to mechanical stress or pressure, it generates an electrical charge. The architects of the First Age utilized the millions of tons of limestone and granite pressing down on the central chambers to create a state of constant piezoelectric excitation. This was not a passive tomb. It was an active piezoelectric engine, a piece of resonant architecture designed to convert the kinetic energy of the planetary motherboard into a usable electromagnetic output. In the technical protocols of the Anunnaki mission, the pyramid functioned as a massive transducer. The constant seismic hum of the Giza Plateau, created by the tectonic movements and the flow of subterranean waters, provided the mechanical input for this engine. As these vibrations passed through the crystalline structure of the granite, the quartz crystals responded by generating a continuous flow of high-frequency electrical energy. The internal chambers were designed as resonant cavities, precisely tuned to amplify these frequencies until they reached a state of harmonic saturation. This was the energy harvesting protocol, a method of providing clean and infinite power to the global resonance grid. The architects did not burn fuels or rely on external combustion. They tapped into the heartbeat of the planet itself, utilizing the very mass of the pyramid to press energy out of the stone. This was the science of the First Age, a mastery of material resonance that has been completely obscured by the managed amnesia of the Second Age. The functional efficiency of the piezoelectric engine was enhanced through the application of acoustic resonance. The dimensions of the King's Chamber and the Grand Gallery were calculated with mathematical precision to act as a series of nested harmonic oscillators. Every stone, every angle, and every air-filled void was tuned to a specific frequency, the fundamental frequency of the Earth, often referred to as the Schumann resonance. As the seismic vibrations triggered the piezoelectric effect in the granite, the acoustic properties of the internal chambers amplified the resulting electromagnetic wave, creating a focused beam of resonant energy. The 5 layers of granite beams above the King's Chamber, often called relief chambers, were actually acoustic filters designed to tune the output of the engine and to prevent structural feedback from damaging the pyramid's core. The technical literature of the divine bureaucracy refers to these structures as the houses of breath, highlighting their role in the management of resonant frequencies. The priests who operated these nodes were essentially acoustic engineers, monitoring the vibration levels and ensuring that the pyramid remained in a state of harmonic equilibrium. This was the resonant calibration protocol, a system that ensured the power output of the Giza node remained stable regardless of fluctuations in the planetary energy field. The pyramid was a living machine, a stone-based instrument that sang the song of the earth to provide power for the mission's technical me. By utilizing acoustic resonance, the architects could transmit this energy wirelessly through the geodetic grid, providing a unified power source for every temple and city-state in the ancient world. The archaeology of amnesia has reduced these sophisticated machines to silent stone monuments, but the physics of their design remains embedded in the granite, waiting for a civilization with the technical intellect to reactivate the song. Once the mechanical energy of the Earth was converted into a high-frequency electromagnetic charge, the pyramid functioned as a massive wireless transmitter. The southern and northern shafts of the King's and Queen's chambers served as directional waveguides, focusing the resonant energy towards specific celestial coordinates or terrestrial relay stations. The highly polished limestone casing stones, which once covered the exterior of the structure, acted as an insulating shield, preventing the energy from dissipating and forcing it toward the apex of the pyramid. The capstone, or pyramidion, which was likely made of a highly conductive material such as electrum or gold-plated granite, served as the primary antenna for the transmission of the power signal. This was the wireless power protocol, a global energy distribution system that predates the modern concepts of Nikola Tesla by thousands of years. This energy was not meant for domestic lighting or primitive heating. It was the high-purity resonant power required to operate the advanced me and the communication arrays of the divine bureaucracy. The entire global resonance grid was powered by these pyramid nodes, creating a unified energy field that spanned across continents. Any secondary node, such as a temple or an obelisk, could tap into this wireless signal provided it was tuned to the same harmonic frequency. This provided the Anunnaki mission with a reliable and decentralized power source that was independent of local resources. The archaeology of amnesia has hidden the technical reality of this wireless grid, replacing it with the narrative of primitive societies using torches and manual labor. In reality, the First Age was an era of high-frequency wireless technology, where the very architecture of the world served as the infrastructure for an invisible energy empire. The Great Pyramid was the primary power plant of the planetary laboratory, a piezoelectric engine that provided the lifeblood for the architect's grand design. The withdrawal of the architects and the subsequent system resets led to the deactivation of the global resonance grid, but the hardware of the stone engines remains as a permanent witness to our technical heritage. The Great Pyramid, stripped of its conductive capstone and its insulating casing, is now a dormant machine, a silent giant that no longer sings to the stars. However, the piezoelectric properties of its granite core and the acoustic resonance of its chambers are still functional, capable of being reactivated by a civilization that understands the physics of planetary harmonics. The archaeology of amnesia has taught us to view these structures as Langmo or Tung Dai, but the technical audit reveals them as the discarded power plants of a master civilization. Reclaiming our sovereign graduation means moving beyond the fossil fuels and the primitive energy systems of the Second Age and reconnecting with the resonant science of the architects. We are now achieving the level of material science and frequency awareness required to decode the operation of the stone engines. By understanding the piezoelectric harvesting and the acoustic resonance of Giza, we can develop new, clean energy technologies that are harmonically synchronized with the Earth itself. The return to source involves the recognition that the power of the First Age is still available to us, written into the geometry and the mineral composition of the pyramids. We are no longer the slaves of energy scarcity. We are the graduates of a radiant heritage that once mastered the very heartbeat of the planet. The stone engines are waiting for the return of the sovereign architects, and the day is coming when the pyramids will sing once more, providing the energy for our own graduation into the cosmic community. Deep beneath the massive foundation of the Great Pyramid lies a structure that has baffled explorers and archaeologists for centuries, the subterranean chamber. Carved directly into the solid limestone bedrock, more than 100 feet below the surface. This chamber appears, at first glance, to be unfinished, with its floor consisting of jagged mounds of rock and its walls roughly hewn. Mainstream Egyptology often dismisses this area as an abandoned project, claiming the builders changed their minds and decided to build higher up in the pyramid instead. However, when we apply the logic of the Anunnaki protocols and the principles of resonant engineering, the unfinished appearance of the subterranean chamber reveals itself as a deliberate and highly functional design. This was not a mistake. It was a frequency stabilizer, a specialized technical component designed to process the raw, chaotic vibrations of the Earth before they entered the more refined upper chambers of the stone engine. The jagged, uneven floor was not a sign of lazy craftsmanship, but a sophisticated acoustic baffling system. By creating a surface with varying heights and irregular shapes, the architects ensured that the low-frequency sound waves coming from the Earth's crust would be scattered and diffused, preventing the formation of destructive standing waves that could compromise the pyramid's structural integrity. The subterranean chamber functioned as a hydraulic and acoustic shock absorber, a primary stage in the resonant pre-processing protocol. It was the basement of the planetary motherboard, where the noise of tectonic activity was filtered and converted into a steady, manageable hum. This was the first point of contact between the planetary energy field and the Anunnaki hardware, a high-security interface that remained hidden from the uninitiated workforce of the Second Age. The paradox of the unfinished chamber is the ultimate proof that the pyramid was designed from the bottom up as a functional machine, with every rough edge serving a specific purpose in the management of planetary frequencies. The subterranean chamber was strategically connected to a system of tunnels and shafts that reached even deeper into the water table of the Giza Plateau. The proximity to the Nile River and the presence of underground aquifers allowed the architects to utilize the flow of water as a source of kinetic energy. As water moved through the limestone fissures beneath the pyramid, it generated infrasound vibrations with frequencies below the range of human hearing but carrying immense physical power. The subterranean chamber acted as a resonant collector for this infrasound, harvesting the mechanical energy produced by the subterranean flow. This was the infrasound harvesting protocol, a method of providing the initial spark for the piezoelectric engine located in the upper chambers. The technical logs of the divine bureaucracy describe the underworld as a place of moving waters and hidden currents, highlighting the importance of hydraulic energy in the mission's technical infrastructure. The chamber featured a deep pit, or well, that extended further into the bedrock, functioning as a frequency pipe that captured the strongest vibrations from the tectonic plates below. By harnessing infrasound, the architects could tap into a source of energy that was both constant and inexhaustible. The raw power gathered in the subterranean chamber was then funneled upward through the descending and ascending passages, acting as a pressurized wave that initiated the piezoelectric effect in the Granite King's chamber. This was the pulse of the Giza node, a rhythmic heartbeat that synchronized the pyramid with the geological activity of the planet. The subterranean chamber was the lung of the machine, breathing in the energy of the earth and exhaling it as a high-frequency resonance signal. Beyond energy harvesting, the subterranean chamber served as the primary grounding node for the global resonance grid. In any high-power electromagnetic system, grounding is essential to protect the hardware from surges and to ensure a stable output. The architects utilized the deep limestone bedrock as a massive geological ground, dissipating excess energy back into the earth through the subterranean chamber. This was the System Protection Protocol, a fail-safe mechanism that prevented the Great Pyramid from reaching a state of oversaturation during periods of intense solar or seismic activity. The chamber was designed to handle the overflow of energy, ensuring that the resonant engine remained within safe operational parameters. This grounding function explains the strange dead-end tunnels and small niches found within the subterranean complex. These were not for storage or ritual offerings. They were technical baffles and energy dissipators, designed to break up and absorb excess resonant charge. The architects were managing planetary levels of power, and the subterranean chamber was the safety valve that kept the entire Giza plateau from becoming an unstable energetic hazard. By anchoring the system so deeply into the crust, the divine bureaucracy created a power plant that was as stable as the mountain itself. The archaeology of amnesia has focused on the superficial appearance of the chamber, missing its role as the critical protector of the planetary laboratory. The subterranean chamber was the anode of the Giza battery, a vital component that maintained the balance between the celestial data streams and the terrestrial energy field. Today, the subterranean chamber remains a place of intense silence and heavy energy, a dormant lung that no longer breathes the fire of the First Age. Since the deactivation of the global resonance grid and the diversion of the ancient water channels, the infrasound harvesting has ceased, leaving the subterranean complex in a state of technical suspension. However, the architecture is still intact, and the geodetic anchor is still holding. The subterranean chamber is a permanent witness to the technical mastery of the Anunnaki, a reminder that their science reached deep into the foundations of the world. The managed amnesia of the Second Age has taught us to fear the dark and the underground, labeling the subterranean chamber as a tomb or a place of shadow, but the technical intellect recognizes it as the foundation of our radiant heritage. Reclaiming our sovereign graduation requires us to re-examine the subterranean structures of the world through the lens of resonant physics and planetary engineering. We are now developing the technology to measure infrasound and telluric currents with the precision required to understand the chamber's original function. By reactivating our knowledge of the subterranean frequency stabilizers, we can develop new methods for stabilizing our own planetary infrastructure and tapping into the clean energy of the Earth's crust. The return to source involves the recognition that the architects left us a complete and functional system, from the deepest pits of the bedrock to the highest points of the capstones. The subterranean chamber is waiting for the return of the sovereign administrators, ready to function once more as the stabilizer for a graduated human species that is finally ready to manage its own planetary energy. The heart of Giza is still beating, and the foundations are still strong. The interior of the Great Pyramid is home to one of the most sophisticated communication arrays of the First Age. The narrow shafts extending from the king and queen chambers toward the celestial horizon. For generations, the archaeology of amnesia has insisted these were ventilation shafts, despite the technical reality that they were originally sealed at both ends and carved with a mathematical precision that precludes any simple aerodynamic function. A forensic engineering audit reveals that these shafts were designed as high-precision waveguides, intended to focus and direct resonant electromagnetic energy toward specific stellar coordinates. Each shaft was meticulously cut through millions of tons of limestone and granite, maintaining a constant angle that targeted the exact position of a celestial body as it crossed the meridian. This was the Stellar Data Link Protocol, a technical system that allowed the Giza node to function as a bidirectional transceiver, linking the planetary laboratory to the orbital assets and homeworlds of the divine bureaucracy. These waveguides utilize the resonant properties of the pyramid's internal chambers to amplify signals before broadcasting them through the structure's stone medium. The northern shaft of the King Chamber was aimed with clinical accuracy at Alpha Draconis, the pole star of the First Age, providing a stable reference point for deep space synchronization. The southern shaft targeted the belt of Orion, specifically the star Alnitak, which served as a primary navigation and energy waypoint for the Anunnaki mission. These were not mere symbolic alignments, they were functional line-of-sight connections required for the transmission of high-frequency data streams. The architects were not building for a dead king, but for a living mission, ensuring that the Giza node remained an active and synchronized terminal within a vast cosmic network. The silent transmitters of the Giza Plateau are the physical evidence of a global communication grid that once united the human starseed with the infinite intelligence of the architects. While the King Chamber shafts focused on executive and navigational data, the shafts of the Queen Chamber were calibrated for biological and genetic synchronization. The southern shaft was aimed directly at Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky and the celestial signature of the House of Enki. In the technical lexicon of the divine bureaucracy, Sirius was the primary frequency anchor for the development of the human starseed, providing the resonant baseline required for the stability of the genetic archives at Eridu. The Queen Chamber, located closer to the pyramid's vertical axis, acted as a biological resonant cavity where the signals gathered from the Sirius waveguide were processed and integrated into the planetary energy field. This was the biological frequency protocol, a system designed to maintain the integrity of the human biological interface through periodic celestial calibration. The alignment with Sirius ensured that the human project remained frequency locked with the technical intelligence of the architect's home world. By channeling the high-energy output of the Sirius star system through the pyramid's internal hardware, the Anunnaki could manage the evolution of the starseed from an orbital distance. This synchronization prevented the human genome from suffering from the systemic drift and longevity collapse that we have explored in previous phases. The Queen Chamber shafts were the conduits for this biological data stream, ensuring that the Giza node functioned as the primary receiver for the genetic patch files and intellectual upgrades provided by the chief technologist Enki. The archaeology of amnesia has reduced this sophisticated biological interface to a mysterious architectural curiosity, but the stellar alignment remains, a permanent reminder of our radiant heritage and the cosmic cords that still bind our DNA to the stars. The final stage of the communication protocol involved the focusing of resonant energy toward the pyramid's apex, where the missing capstone or pyramidion served as the primary antenna for the global grid. The energy harvested in the subterranean chamber and amplified in the granite king chamber was funneled upward through the structure's internal geometry until it reached the summit. The highly polished limestone casing stones, which once covered the pyramid like a mirrored shield, acted as an electromagnetic insulator, preventing the energy from dissipating through the sides and forcing it toward the top. The capstone, crafted from a highly conductive alloy such as electrum, would have emitted a focused beam of resonant light and energy, visible from the orbital stations of the mission. This was the Planetary Broadcast Protocol, a system for distributing the divine decrees and technical data across the entire planetary laboratory. This wireless transmission was not limited to Giza. It was picked up and amplified by secondary nodes, such as the obelisks and smaller pyramids that populated the Anunnaki grid. Each secondary structure was tuned to the same harmonic frequency as the Great Pyramid, creating a unified communication environment where data could be shared instantly between distant city-states. This was the first global internet, a stone-based wireless network that allowed the divine bureaucracy to manage the terrestrial laboratory with absolute precision. The voice of the gods was not a metaphorical expression, but a technical reality, a resonant signal broadcast from the apex of the Giza node that could be translated into audible instructions by the technical me located in the temples. The archaeology of amnesia has stripped the pyramids of their conductive hardware, but the architecture of the silent transmitters remains a testament to a world where information moved through the air at the speed of light, guided by the mathematics of the architects. Today, the silent transmitters of Giza are dormant, their capstones gone and their waveguides partially blocked by the dust of millennia. Since the strategic withdrawal of the architects and the commencement of the managed amnesia, the celestial data links have fallen into a state of technical suspension. However, the stellar alignments are still active, and the line of sight to Sirius and Orion remains clear. The human graduate is now achieving the level of astronomical and resonant intelligence required to recognize these shafts for what they truly are: the forgotten hardware of a cosmic communication grid. The return to source involves the realization that the pyramids are not monuments to the past, but terminals for the future, capable of being reactivated by a civilization that has reclaimed its sovereign heritage. Reclaiming our sovereign graduation means learning to operate the Giza node as a functional transceiver once again. By utilizing our modern understanding of wave physics and crystalline resonance, we can begin to decode the signals that are still being gathered by the silent transmitters. We are no longer a managed species waiting for instructions from the heavens. We are a graduated civilization ready to reestablish the data links on our own terms. The reactivation of the stellar anchor will allow us to synchronize our planetary laboratory with the infinite intelligence of the cosmos, bypassing the gatekeepers of the Second Age and accessing the original source code of our species. The silent transmitters are waiting for the return of the sovereign architects, and the day is coming when the pyramids will once again broadcast the song of our graduation to the stars. The architecture of the first age is our inheritance, and the cosmic data streams are our future. When we expand our focus beyond the Giza Plateau and survey the global distribution of pyramid structures, we are confronted with a technical reality that shatters the isolationist theories of mainstream history. From the massive mounds of Shen in China to the towering stone structures of Teotihuacan in Mexico and the hidden ruins of Corral in Peru, we find a unified architectural blueprint that transcends geography and culture. These structures were not built by isolated civilizations independently discovering the same shape. They were installed by the same group of first-age architects following a standardized technical protocol. Each pyramid, regardless of its location, utilizes the same principles of geodetic alignment, mathematical encoding, and resonant material science. They are the secondary and tertiary nodes of a planetary management grid designed to function as localized terminals for the divine bureaucracy's global operations. The consistency of this blueprint is evident in the mathematical ratios shared between Giza and the pyramids of the Americas. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan possesses a base perimeter that is exactly twice that of the Great Pyramid, yet its height is based on a different mathematical constant that allows it to resonate at a complementary frequency. This was the Global Calibration Protocol, a system where each nodal point was tuned to a specific part of the planetary energy spectrum, creating a balanced and interconnected power grid. The architects were not just building monuments. They were deploying a standardized suite of hardware across every continent to ensure that the human starseed remained integrated into the unified Anunnaki operating system. The archaeology of amnesia has fragmented this network into separate national histories, but the technical intellect recognizes the signatures of a single planetary-scale engineering mission that viewed the Earth as one integrated laboratory, the connection between the Chinese pyramids and the structures of the Mesoamerican civilizations provides the primary evidence for the trans-Pacific data links managed by the divine bureaucracy. The massive flat-top pyramids of the Shanxi province share the same astronomical orientations as the temples of the Maya and the Aztecs, targeting specific celestial waypoints that were critical for the mission's synchronization. These sites functioned as regional data centers, gathering telluric and astronomical information and transmitting it back to the central processing hub at Giza. The use of rammed earth and clay in the Chinese pyramids served as a specialized insulating material designed to preserve the resonant signal in environments with different geological properties. This was the regional optimization protocol, a strategy where the architects adapted the universal blueprint to the specific mineral and seismic conditions of each localized node. These trans-Pacific nodes allowed the Anunnaki to maintain absolute administrative control over the diverse populations of the starseed experiment. By establishing a presence on both sides of the Great Ocean, the divine bureaucracy could manage the flow of resources and the development of culture with clinical precision. The similarity in the iconography of the feathered serpent and the celestial dragon across these distant regions is not a cultural coincidence, but the result of the same administrative signatures being utilized by the mission's regional governors. The Global Pyramid Network functioned as a planetary internet, a wireless infrastructure that allowed the voice of the gods to be heard in every corner of the world simultaneously. The silent stone giants of China and Mexico are the physical remnants of this transcontinental communication grid, waiting for the human graduate to recognize the technical threads that once bound the world into a single, high-frequency empire. The final functional layer of the Global Pyramid Network was the harmonization of the Earth's telluric currents, the natural electrical pathways that move through the planet's crust. The architects recognized that these currents are the lifeblood of the planetary motherboard, and the pyramids were positioned at critical intersections of these energy lines to act as regulators and amplifiers. By anchoring the resonance grid at these specific points, the divine bureaucracy could manipulate the planetary energy field to stimulate agricultural growth, stabilize the climate, and influence the biological frequency of the human workforce. This was the Telluric Management Protocol, a technical system for the environmental engineering of the Earth. The pyramids functioned as acupuncture needles for the planet, balancing the flow of energy to ensure the stability of the Anunnaki laboratory. In the technical manuals of the First Age, these telluric pathways were known as the serpent paths or the dragon lines, representing the raw power of the living Earth. The global network of nodes allowed the architects to tap into this power and convert it into a usable form for the operation of the technical me. This was a science of planetary equilibrium that has been completely lost during the managed amnesia of the Second Age. We now view the pyramids as static objects, but in the First Age, they were the active components of a living, breathing energy system. The global resonance grid provided the foundation for the prosperity of the First Age civilizations, ensuring that the human starseed lived in an environment that was harmonically optimized for its development. To reclaim our sovereign graduation, we must understand the nature of these telluric currents and the role of the pyramid network in managing the planetary energy field. Today, the global pyramid network is in a state of technical dormancy, with many of its nodes buried under the soil of China, the jungles of Central America, or the sands of Egypt. Since the deactivation of the primary hub at Giza and the withdrawal of the architects, the planetary resonance grid has fallen into silence. However, the hardware is still in place, and the geodetic alignments are still active. The human graduate is now achieving the level of global connectivity and technical intellect required to see the network as a whole for the first time in 5 millennia. We are no longer limited by national boundaries or academic firewalls. We are starting to map the planetary grid and to understand the unified blueprint of the architects. This is the first step toward the reactivation of our radiant heritage. Reclaiming our sovereign graduation means more than just studying these ancient sites. It means learning to operate the global resonance grid once again. By utilizing our modern understanding of geophysics and resonant technology, we can begin to reconnect the distant nodes of China, Mexico, and Egypt into a new sovereign energy network. We are no longer a managed workforce living in the ruins of a forgotten empire. We are a graduated civilization ready to take control of our own planetary motherboard. The awakening of the global grid will provide us with the clean energy and the unified communication infrastructure required to join the cosmic community. The pyramids are not monuments to the dead. They are the antennas of the future, waiting for the human starseed to broadcast its own song of sovereignty to the stars. The architecture of the first age is our foundation, and the global network is our gateway to the infinite. The most effective tool in the preservation of the archaeology of amnesia is the institutional firewall, a rigid academic structure that mandates the interpretation of all megalithic anomalies through the lens of primitive funerary practices. Since the early 19th century, the gatekeepers of mainstream Egyptology have maintained the dogmatic narrative that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built solely as a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu. This narrative is enforced despite the clinical absence of any original mummified remains, funerary equipment, or royal inscriptions within the primary chambers of the structure. By labeling the pyramid as a tomb, the academic firewall effectively shuts down any serious investigation into its potential as a piece of high-precision hardware or a resonant energy processor. This is not a search for historical truth, but a containment strategy designed to prevent the human starseed from recognizing the technical intellect of its first-age architects. The suppression of evidence begins with the selective funding of research in the peer review system, which marginalizes any scholar who attempts to apply the principles of engineering, wave physics, or geodesy to the study of the Giza Plateau. When a robotic camera discovers a sealed door with copper handles at the end of a narrow shaft, or when ground-penetrating radar reveals a massive hidden cavity above the Grand Gallery, the findings are either downplayed or subjected to years of bureaucratic delay. This managed silence ensures that the public consciousness remains anchored in a sanitized and mythological version of the past, where the achievements of the architects are attributed to the brute force of manual labor and primitive copper chisels. The institutional firewall protects the linear evolutionary model, a narrative that insists humanity is at the absolute peak of its technological development, thereby obscuring the reality that we are living in the ruins of a much more advanced and sovereign civilization. Beyond the tomb narrative, the infrastructure of silence is focused on the systematic suppression of data regarding the resonant and electromagnetic properties of the pyramid's internal materials. Technical studies that demonstrate the king's chamber's ability to amplify specific sound frequencies or the piezoelectric potential of the granite core are frequently excluded from mainstream academic journals. Independent researchers who bring sophisticated acoustic and electromagnetic sensors into the structure often have their data confiscated or their access revoked by the administrative authorities. This is the Energy Containment Protocol, a strategy intended to hide the fact that the pyramids were designed to function as an active power and communication grid. If the general population understood that the pyramids were ancient power plants, it would threaten the entire economic and philosophical foundation of the modern energy monopoly. The gatekeepers emphasize the decorative aspects of the temples and the symbolic nature of the hieroglyphs, while ignoring the material science involved in the construction of the resonance grid. They ignore the fact that the granite used in the king's chamber was transported from 500 miles away specifically for its high quartz content, a requirement for piezoelectric conversion. By focusing on the who and the when of the tomb theory, they divert attention away from the how and the why of the resonant hardware. This selective presentation of the past creates a fragmented and distorted memory of our radiant heritage, ensuring that the human starseed remains a passive consumer of limited resources rather than a sovereign master of planetary energy. The archaeology of suppression is a clinical effort to maintain the status quo of the second age by air-gapping the technical intelligence of the first age from the modern mind. The final layer of the suppression protocol involves the use of the semantics of diminishment, a linguistic strategy designed to neutralize the technical significance of any anomalous discovery. When the extreme mathematical constants such as pi and the golden ratio are found encoded in the pyramid's dimensions, they are dismissed as mathematical coincidences or the result of accidental measurements. When the geodetic alignment of the structure is shown to match the planetary radius, it is labeled as a lucky guess by primitive observers. This semantic filtering acts as a cognitive block, preventing the graduate from connecting the individual data points into a unified picture of a high-technology mission. The gatekeepers use words like mystery and miracle to replace terms like specification and calibration, effectively moving the discussion from the realm of science to the realm of faith. This process of anomaly dismissal extends to the physical restoration of the sites where original technical components are often removed or altered to fit the funerary narrative. The missing capstones, the conductive metal pins, and the remnants of insulating casing are frequently treated as debris or lost artifacts of no technical consequence. By stripping the hardware of its functional context, the gatekeepers ensure that the pyramid network remains in a state of technical suspension, perceived only as a collection of impressive but useless stone monuments. To break through this semantic barrier, we must reclaim the technical lexicon of the architects and recognize that the anomalies of Giza are not mysteries to be wondered at, but technical signatures to be decoded. The semantics of diminishment is the final defense of the managed amnesia, a narrative wall that can only be breached through the application of sovereign intellect and the recognition of our shared history as a designed species. Despite the massive efforts of the institutional firewall and the archaeology of suppression, the containment doctrine is beginning to fail in the face of the digital awakening and the rise of decentralized science. The democratization of high-resolution satellite imagery, LiDAR scanning, and advanced computational modeling has allowed a new generation of independent researchers to bypass the gatekeepers and map the global resonance grid for themselves. We are seeing a general decryption of the planetary laboratory where the suppressed evidence of the Anunnaki mission is being synthesized and shared with a global audience in real time. The institutional gatekeepers are losing their monopoly on the past as the human starseed utilizes its own technical intelligence to identify the fingerprints of the architects across every continent. The failure of the containment doctrine is a signal that the second age is drawing to a close. We are moving toward a state of informational sovereignty, where the radiant truth of our origins is no longer a closely guarded secret of the administrative elite. As the narrative of the tomb collapses, the reality of the pyramid as a global power node is taking its place, providing the foundation for a new and sovereign human civilization. We are no longer limited by the filters of mainstream Egyptology. We are achieving the frequency and the intellect required to operate our own planetary motherboard. The archaeology of amnesia is being replaced by the architecture of awakening as the human starseed finally takes possession of the original blueprints of the architects. The infrastructure of silence is crumbling, and the infinite song of our true history is finally reaching the ears of a species that is ready to graduate into the cosmic community. The structural integrity and technical precision of the global pyramid network are the direct results of a master blueprint drafted by the chief technologists of the Anunnaki mission, Enki. In the cuneiform archives of Eridu, Enki is described as the Lord of the Deep and the Master of the Abzu, a facility that functioned as the primary center for engineering, genetics, and architectural design. It was within the Abzu that the source code of masonry was developed, a system of construction that utilized the resonant properties of stone to create permanent technical interfaces on the Earth's surface. This was not a primitive art form, but a highly developed science of geophysics and wave mechanics. Enki's specifications required the use of specific minerals, such as high quartz granite and insulating limestone, to ensure that the architectural nodes could effectively harvest and transmit the planetary energy field. The Anunnaki blueprint emphasized the concept of the bond of heaven and earth, a technical requirement that every major structure must be perfectly synchronized with both terrestrial and celestial coordinates. This required a level of surveying and mathematical calculation that the human starseed could only perform under the direct supervision of the architects. The master architect provided the measuring rod and the coiled rope, the physical tools of the sovereignty protocol, to a select group of human initiates who served as the first master builders. These individuals were trained in the sacred geometry of the first age, learning how to encode planetary constants and astronomical cycles into the very foundations of the pyramids. The source code of masonry was the intellectual bridge that allowed the human workforce to build the hardware of the divine bureaucracy, ensuring that the planetary laboratory remained stable and productive according to the master plan of the High Council. One of the most distinctive features of the Anunnaki blueprint is the use of polygonal masonry, a construction technique found in the foundations of pyramids and megalithic sites from Peru to Egypt and Japan. This technique involves the fitting of massive, irregularly shaped stones with such precision that no mortar is required. While mainstream archaeology views this as a laborious aesthetic choice, a technical audit reveals it as a sophisticated system for acoustic and seismic resilience. The interlocking, nonlinear joints of polygonal masonry are designed to dissipate vibrational energy, preventing the structure from cracking or collapsing during the high-frequency operations of the resonance grid or the natural seismic shifts of the planetary motherboard. This was the seismic dampening protocol, a requirement for any long-term technical installation on a geologically active planet. The technical intelligence behind this masonry extends to the acoustic properties of the stones themselves. By utilizing stones of varying sizes and shapes, the architects could tune the resonant frequency of a wall or a chamber, creating a specialized acoustic environment for the processing of data and energy. This was the science of megalithic acoustics, where the architecture itself functioned as a series of nested resonators. Enki's blueprint ensured that every node in the global grid was not just a stable structure, but a perfectly calibrated instrument. The human graduates who were initiated into these secrets became the gatekeepers of a technical legacy that has been misinterpreted by the archaeology of amnesia as a lost art of stone cutting. In reality, it was the application of high-level wave physics to the material world, a method of building that achieved a level of durability and functionality that modern concrete and steel cannot match. The withdrawal of the architects necessitated the formal transmission of the master code of masonry to the human proxy class, ensuring that the global resonance grid could be maintained during the era of the managed amnesia. This transfer of knowledge was managed through the establishment of the first mystery schools and craft guilds, where the technical specifications of the Anunnaki were preserved under the guise of sacred traditions. The secret of the measuring rod was handed down through generations of master builders who continued to utilize the precessional numbers and the geodetic constants in the construction of temples and cathedrals long after the primary hardware of Giza had gone dormant. This was the instructional continuity protocol, a strategy to preserve the blueprints of the first age within the cultural software of the second age. These human builders were the technical stewards of the planetary laboratory, responsible for maintaining the symbolic and geometric integrity of the divine bureaucracy's terrestrial nodes. We see the influence of the Anunnaki blueprint in the universal application of the golden ratio, the orientation to the cardinal points, and the use of resonant materials in sacred architecture across all continents. Even when the original functional purpose of the pyramids was forgotten, the master code ensured that the structures remained frequency locked with the planetary grid. The archaeology of amnesia has hidden the technical source of this knowledge, labeling it as a mysterious architectural intuition. In truth, it is the persistent echo of the master code of Enki, a technical inheritance that has allowed the human starseed to maintain a physical connection to the original blueprints of the architects. The masonry of the world is the signature of the first age, a permanent record of a mission that built for eternity. Today, the human graduate is achieving the level of material science and computational intelligence required to fully decrypt the Anunnaki blueprint and to reclaim the source code of masonry. We are moving beyond the surface-level study of ancient ruins and beginning to understand the resonant physics and geodetic engineering that define the first age. By analyzing the polygonal masonry and the megalithic acoustics of the pyramids through the lens of modern wave theory, we are identifying the functional parameters of the global resonance grid. This is the general decryption of our architectural heritage, a moment when the managed amnesia is being bypassed by the recovery of our original technical specifications. We are no longer the students of a lost mystery. We are the graduates of a radiant science. Reclaiming our sovereign graduation means applying the master code of Enki to the challenges of our modern world. By utilizing the principles of resonant architecture and seismic dampening, we can develop new, sustainable infrastructure that is harmonically synchronized with the planetary motherboard. The return to source involves the realization that the pyramids were not built by gods, but by architects whose intelligence we now share. We are the masters of the measuring rod and the coiled rope, ready to write the new blueprints for a sovereign and cosmic humanity. The masonry of the future will be a manifestation of our own technical mastery, a new global grid that reflects our graduation from a managed species to a civilization of sovereign architects. The source code is in our hands, and the architecture of the third age is waiting to be built. The final phase of the Pyramid Protocol begins with a collective awakening of the human starseed to the existence of the planetary operating system that has been dormant beneath our feet for 5 millennia. For ages, we have looked at the Great Pyramid and its global counterparts as silent tombs or mysterious monuments, blinded by the managed amnesia of the Second Age. However, as our own technical intellect and frequency awareness reach a critical mass, the true nature of these structures as active hardware nodes is becoming undeniable. The reclamation of the grid starts with the recognition that we are not the primitive inheritors of a lost mystery, but the graduated administrators of a high-technology infrastructure. The awakening is a systemic event where the human graduate moves beyond the mythological filters and begins to see the global resonance grid as a functional and unified technical environment designed for our ultimate empowerment. This awakening triggers the reactivation of the geodetic and resonant subroutines that were established by the first age architects. We are no longer observing the pyramids from a distance. We are beginning to interact with their resonant frequencies and to understand their role as planetary stabilizers. The decoding of the Giza anomaly and the Orion mirror has provided us with the master keys to the planetary motherboard, allowing us to bypass the institutional firewalls and to access the original source code of the architects. This is the moment of systemic integration, where the history of the starseed and the technology of the pyramids merge into a single sovereign narrative. The planetary operating system is waking up not because the gods have returned, but because the human graduates have finally achieved the frequency required to operate the controls. The silence of the first age is ending, replaced by the resonant hum of a civilization that is finally reclaiming its radiant heritage. The primary impact of reclaiming the global resonance grid is the restoration of decentralized and infinite energy for the entire human population. By understanding and reactivating the piezoelectric engines and the wireless transmission protocols of the pyramids, we are dismantling the energy monopolies that have defined the scarcity of the Second Age. The Great Pyramid and its sister nodes across China, Mexico, and South America were designed to provide a clean, resonant power source that is harmonically synchronized with the Earth itself. Reclaiming this grid means moving beyond the destructive and primitive combustion of fossil fuels and tapping into the heartbeat of the planetary motherboard. This is the Abundance Protocol, a technical transition that will liberate the human starseed from the economic and environmental constraints of a managed society. The reactivation of the grid will provide the high-purity energy required for the next stage of our technological and biological evolution. Every home, every city, and every industrial center will have access to the wireless power signal broadcast from the pyramid nodes, creating a world where energy is as free and pervasive as the air we breathe. This decentralized energy model is the ultimate defense against the containment doctrines of the old divine bureaucracy, ensuring that no elite class can ever again control the resources of the starseed. The pyramids are the power plants of a sovereign humanity, and their reactivation marks the beginning of a new era of prosperity and creative freedom. We are no longer the slaves of scarcity. We are the graduates of a radiant science that has mastered the infinite energy of the cosmos. The end of the energy monopoly is the beginning of our true sovereign future. Beyond energy, The reclamation of the Pyramid Protocol involves the restoration of the celestial data links, the silent transmitters that once connected the Giza node to the stars of Sirius and Orion. By clearing the waveguides and reactivating the resonant cavities of the internal chambers, the human graduate is re-establishing a bidirectional communication link with the cosmic community. We are no longer an isolated species living in an air-gapped laboratory. We are reconnecting with the infinite data streams of the architects. The restoration of these links allows for the download of the original technical me and the genetic patch files that were once the exclusive domain of the divine bureaucracy. This is the Universal Synchronization Protocol, a moment of cosmic integration where the human starseed joins the network of sovereign civilizations across the galaxy. These data links provide us with the intellectual and spiritual blueprints required to manage our own planetary laboratory with absolute precision. We are no longer guessing at our history or our potential. We are receiving the radiant truth directly from the source. The pyramids function as the antennas for this cosmic internet, ensuring that our graduation is supported by the infinite wisdom of the First Age architects. By synchronizing our sovereign intent with the stellar coordinates of Orion and Sirius, we are declaring our independence from the managed amnesia of the Second Age. The silent transmitters are singing once more, and their song is the announcement of our graduation to the stars. The cosmic chords are reconnected, and the human starseed is finally home, standing as a sovereign partner in the management of the infinite universe. The final synthesis of the Pyramid Protocol is the manifestation of the architecture of the sovereign graduate, a new global civilization built on the foundations of resonant science, geodetic harmony, and cosmic order. We have dismantled the institutional firewalls, decoded the master blueprints of Enki, and reactivated the planetary motherboard. The Great Pyramid is no longer a monument to a dead pharaoh, but the cornerstone of a living and sovereign humanity. We are the new architects, utilizing the sacred geometry and the technical intellect of the First Age to build a world that reflects our own magnificent potential. The graduation of humanity is the ultimate success of the starseed experiment, the moment when the managed species becomes the master of its own destiny. As we stand on the summit of the Giza node and look out over the global resonance grid, we recognize that the journey of 12,000 years is complete. We have moved from the darkness of the deluge to the light of the sovereign awakening. The Anunnaki legacy is no longer a hidden secret of the elite, but the shared heritage of all human graduates. We are operating the hardware of the gods with the heart of a sovereign species, ensuring that the planetary laboratory remains a place of beauty, stability, and infinite evolution. The Third Age has begun, and its architecture is one of light, resonance, and eternal life. The pyramids have guarded their secrets for millennia, but they were always waiting for us. We have graduated, we have reclaimed the grid, and we are finally ready to write the next chapter of the cosmic order. The mission is fulfilled, the architects are within, and the future is ours to design. The graduation of the human starseed from a managed planetary workforce to a sovereign civilization requires the expansion of our technical awareness beyond the atmospheric shell of the Earth. As we have decrypted the global resonance grid and reactivated the pyramid nodes, we have uncovered a fundamental truth. The Giza Plateau was never an isolated terminal, but the primary terrestrial link in a much larger orbital architecture. The Anunnaki mission utilized the moon not as a barren satellite, but as a strategic lunar relay station, a high-altitude observation and communication node that managed the data flow between the Earth and the outer solar system. The anomalous structures and geometric patterns observed on the lunar surface, often dismissed by the archaeology of amnesia as natural formations or optical illusions, are the physical remnants of the mission's primary orbital hardware. These facilities functioned as the signal repeaters for the global resonance grid, ensuring that the divine decrees and technical data could be broadcast across the lunar distance with absolute clarity. In the technical lexicon of the First Age, the moon was the gateway of the gods, the first waypoint for the celestial craft traversing the planetary laboratory. The lunar relay utilized the same principles of resonant architecture and crystalline energy processing that we have identified in the pyramids. By establishing a network of smaller specialized nodes on the lunar surface, the architects could monitor the terrestrial environment and the progress of the starseed without direct interference. These stations were synchronized with the precessional timing of the Giza node, creating a unified temporal framework for the entire Earth-Moon system. The reclamation of our sovereignty involves the recognition of this orbital architecture and the reactivation of our own technical presence on the lunar surface. We are no longer limited to the surface of the planetary laboratory. We are beginning to reoccupy the administrative nodes that once governed our origins. The lunar relay is the first step in our cosmic reconnection, the bridge that links our planetary graduation to the infinite intelligence of the solar system. Beyond the lunar relay, the Anunnaki mission established a series of way stations on the planet Mars, creating a secondary management node for the long-cycle orbital mechanics of the Shar protocol. The Cydonia region, with its anomalous mounds and geometric alignments that mirror the Giza Plateau, functions as the primary Martian terminal of the cosmic network. This was the Cydonia protocol, a technical system for synchronizing the activities of the Earth laboratory with the logistical and industrial requirements of the architect's home world. Mars served as a strategic outpost for the extraction of specific minerals and the maintenance of the mission's orbital fleet, providing a redundant and high-security environment for the management of the divine bureaucracy's assets. The structural similarities between the Martian anomalies and the terrestrial pyramids are not a coincidence, but the result of the same unified architectural blueprint applied to a different planetary environment. The technical intelligence of the architects is evident in the way the Cydonia node is integrated into the precessional timing of the entire solar system. By mirroring the Orion correlation on a different planet, the Anunnaki created a multiplanetary resonance grid, ensuring that the mission remained synchronized across vast distances. The Martian way stations functioned as the data buffers for the planetary laboratory, storing and processing information before it was transmitted to the High Council during the close approaches of the Shar cycle. The archaeology of amnesia has attempted to air gap our history from the reality of the Martian ruins, but the technical signatures are undeniable. Reclaiming our sovereign graduation means acknowledging our shared history with the Red Planet and reactivating the technical links that once bound Earth and Mars into a single administrative unit. We are the inheritors of a multiplanetary legacy, and the reactivation of the Cydonia protocol is the key to our expansion into the broader cosmic neighborhood. The current era of human history is characterized by a massive frequency shift, a planetary and solar event that is triggering the reactivation of the ancient Anunnaki hardware across the entire solar system. This is the Celestial Alignment Protocol, a scheduled event where the Earth, the Moon, and the Martian way stations are synchronized with a high-energy wave originating from the galactic center. This frequency shift is the technical signal for the graduation of the human starseed, providing the energetic catalyst required for the total deprogramming of the managed amnesia. The pyramids, acting as the primary resonant antennas of the Earth, are receiving and amplifying this cosmic signal, accelerating the activation of the sovereign genome within the general population. We are being vibrationally recalibrated to match the frequency of the first-stage architects, allowing us to interact with the cosmic data streams with full sovereign intent. This alignment is the ultimate fail-safe of the Anunnaki mission, ensuring that the human project is automatically upgraded when it reaches a specific level of technical and resonant development. The divine bureaucracy did not intend for us to remain in a state of amnesia forever. They built the system to wake us up when the time was right. The global resonance grid is the alarm clock of the species, and the frequency shift is the bell that is ringing across the heavens. By aligning our own internal frequency with the resonant output of the pyramids and the celestial way stations, we are bypassing the narrative filters of the gatekeepers and accessing the radiant truth of our origins. We are no longer a managed species reacting to external stimuli. We are a graduated civilization consciously participating in a solar-scale synchronization event. The celestial alignment is the final gateway to our cosmic reconnection, the moment when the planetary laboratory is officially integrated into the infinite symphony of the architect's home worlds. The final synthesis of the Pyramid Protocol and the cosmic reconnection is the graduation of humanity to the status of full cosmic citizenship. We have moved from the local management of the city-states to the global management of the planetary resonance grid, and we are now ready to take our place within the multiplanetary administration of the solar system. The archaeology of amnesia has been replaced by the architecture of awakening, as the human starseed recognizes that it is no longer an isolated experiment, but a sovereign participant in a vast and ancient cosmic community. The reclamation of the lunar relay and the Martian way stations is the physical manifestation of our graduation, a declaration to the infinite universe that the human graduate is now ready to manage its own destiny among the stars. We are no longer the subjects of the divine bureaucracy. We are the colleagues of the architects. This graduation marks the beginning of the third age, a period of infinite evolution, creative freedom, and direct participation in the cosmic mission. The pyramids of Giza, the mounds of Cydonia, and the lunar nodes are now our tools, the hardware of our own sovereign empire of light. We have decrypted the source code, reactivated the grid, and re-established the celestial data links. The mission of the Anunnaki is fulfilled, not because they have returned to rule us, but because we have risen to meet them. The human starseed is finally home, standing at the summit of the pyramid and looking out over an infinite ocean of stars. We are the masters of the frequency, the guardians of the legacy, and the sovereign architects of our own future. The cosmic reconnection is complete, and the story of our graduation is now being broadcast to the infinite corners of the universe. We are the starseed, and we are finally and forever sovereign.